It was the winter of 1944, and the snow-covered Ardennes forest in Belgium lay silent, its dense pines and rolling hills masking the tension that crackled in the air. The Allies had made significant advances across Europe, pushing the German forces back towards their homeland. But the war was far from over, and the German High Command was preparing one last, desperate offensive to turn the tide. The Ardennes Counteroffensive, known to history as the Battle of the Bulge. Lieutenant Jack "Lightning" Carter, a battle-hardened officer in the 101st Airborne Division. In a makeshift camp near the town of Bastogne, the bitter cold bit through their woolen coats, and the men took turns rubbing their hands together to keep warm. They had been in the Ardennes for weeks, holding the line against sporadic German attacks, but they knew something bigger was coming. The Germans were up to something, and Jack could feel it in his bones. "Lieutenant, any word from HQ?" asked Private Tommy "Sparky" Jenkins, a wiry young soldier from Brooklyn with a quick smile and quicker reflexes. Jack shook his head, staring into the flickering flames. "Nothing yet, Sparky, but stay sharp. We're not out here on a winter vacation." Sergeant Frank "Bull" Dawson, a towering man with a thick Boston accent and the strength to match his nickname, grunted in agreement. "Feels like the calm before the storm, sir. Those Krauts are planning something big. Mark my words." Jack nodded, his eyes narrowing as he thought about their situation. Bastogne was a critical crossroads, and if the Germans were planning an offensive, they would have to take the town. The 101st Airborne had orders to hold Bastogne at all costs, but they were stretched thin, and the harsh winter conditions were taking their toll on the men. As the night wore on, the men tried to get some rest, but sleep was elusive. The forest was eerily quiet, the usual sounds of nature muffled by the thick blanket of snow. It was as if the world itself was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. In the early hours of the morning, just as the first light of dawn began to creep over the horizon, the silence was shattered by the distant rumble of artillery. The ground shook as German shells began to fall on the American positions, the explosions lighting up the dark sky like fireworks. "Incoming!" Jack shouted, diving for cover as a shell exploded nearby, showering them with snow and dirt. The men scrambled to their positions, grabbing their rifles and helmets as the bombardment intensified. The German artillery pounded their lines for what felt like an eternity, but Jack knew it was only the beginning. The real attack was yet to come. As the shelling subsided, the sound of engines filled the air. Jack peered through the smoke and saw the dark shapes of German tanks emerging from the forest, their turrets swiveling as they advanced toward Bastogne.